An excellent teacher means teaching to enhance development and learning of mathematics. Please note that in this particular phrase, we're looking at the development of young children, as well as how it is connected to what they learn. In the book, Young Children and Mathematics, there are many sections that talk about the learning paths that young children take, and especially related to how they learn mathematics. In this section, we're going to talk about the strategies that are very, very important as teachers take into account the development and the learning of young children. In this section, I'm going to talk about only two descriptors of what it means to enhance development and learning of mathematics. They are: use a wide range of teaching strategies, and second, scaffold children's learning. Let's start with the first one. Use a wide variety of teaching strategies. As you can see on this list, there are many of them. And this list does not include many others. This is just a small list, actually, of all the possible strategies. The key phrase in this idea is a variety of teaching strategies. I don't think I have ever taught a lesson or worked with young children using only one. In fact, I need lots of them to be able to really facilitate the learning and development of young children. On this slide, you see many different possible teaching strategies. This list is not conclusive. In fact, there's many others that are not included here. But they just give you an idea of the variety that are involved when we think about the teaching strategies that work best for young children. If you notice, many of these are very teacher-guided strategies. Strategies in which you see the teacher as being the one who is guiding the learning. In others, what you will see is that the child is really guiding the learning. And there are ones where the child is really the person in charge of what's happening. I think about this idea and think about my past experience in learning and how to teach young children. When I first started learning how to teach, I was part of a group that we were supposed to just set up the environment and the child would learn. I often wondered if I was only to observe and set up experiences. Later, I went to a public school where they were very teacher-directed. And in fact, my goal seemed to be just to keep them busy with tasks that I assigned them. I think teaching young children is very important. It is very important that you think about how you're going to teach them. I think it's specific to the situation. It's specific to what you want to teach. It's specific to the child and where they are. And there are really no set rules other than I must always think about the child and teach a variety and teach with a variety of teaching strategies. Well, let's look at some examples of video clips as we look at the types of teaching strategies you might use. In this next video clip, you're going to see a group of children playing a game that I call block towers. First of all, the pre-kindergartners are in a large group where I'm explaining the rules and talking about what you do if the tower falls down, or what you do if the tower stays up. One of the important parts of this game is that I want children to see how to handle something when it doesn't work. I think that's an important part of the process of learning. I'm going to use a lot of directions as I talk to them and ask them questions about their understanding. Later then, they go to a small group and we play the game again with some teacher direction. After this happens, and you won't see this part on the video clip, the children play this game in small groups all the time in the block center. In fact, they play this much more by themselves than they do with me. As you look at this tape, there's a couple questions I want you to think about. First question is, what teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? The second question is, are the teaching strategies used appropriate for the task? Look at the video clip now as you think about those particular teaching strategies that were listed. After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
Blue tower. And our job is to see how tall we can make the towers.
Ooh.
Now, here's what we're going to do though. There's some rules about how you make the towers. If the tower gets really, when you put your blocks on and it gets very, and it doesn't fall over and it does great, you're going to go, yes. Okay? Let's all practice that, okay?
Yeah.
When your tower gets all the way up there, you're going to go, yes. So practice that with me. Yes. Okay. So I'll probably hear some of Miss Morris's group saying, yes. And you'll hear me saying, my group going, yes. Okay. Now, there's probably going to be some times when the tower's going to fall over. Okay? I just have a feeling that's going to happen, Miss Morris. It usually does. And when that happens, we're all going to go, oh, well. So would you do that with me for me? Oh, well. Because that just means you'll get another turn. And we'll take, if it falls over, we'll just keep trying. Okay? So we're not going to be mad or anything. We're just going to know we'll be okay. All right? So show me what you're going to do when someone puts blocks on and they stay. What are you going to do? Yes. And when they fall over, what are you going to do?
Oh.
Well. All right, good. We got that part down. Now here's the way. So let's pretend it's Mrs. Copley's turn for just a minute, okay? Because I just want to, everybody's going to get a turn, but let me just pretend it's my turn. It's my turn. I'm going to roll the die. And I'm going to count the pips. Those little dots are going to tell me. You just knew it was 5? You didn't have to count them? How did you know that was 5? Boy, did other people know that was 5?
Yes.
Wow, how did you know that was 5?
Because it has 5 dots.
5 dots on it, like a hand would have on it? Is that what you mean? Oh, you're right, it's 5. I was really neat how you know that's 5. Well, anyway, so it says 5. That means you get to choose 5 blocks to make a tower, okay? Now, remember this is my turn just to say, so I'm going to choose this block. I've got 1 block. How many more am I going to need?
2.
To make 5?
10. 4 more.
I have 1. What'd you say?
5.
You said 4 more, Ashley? How did you know that? Because that's right. How'd you know?
5 more. 4.
Would you show me that again, please? How did you know, just let me ask again, how did you know this was, you already had 1 and you knew it was 4 more. How did you know that?
Because 5 were here and then it was 4.
Oh, that's 5. Oh, I see. You used your fingers then. Okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, you ready? How many?
4.
Well, you know that awful fast. 4, right? 4.
That's a big
Okay, now first of all, put them down on the floor so we can see if that's right. Let's help them count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Okay, you can put them either place you want to. It's up to you. Yes, everybody. Yes, very nice. Ooh, this one's a tall one. Now, when you come on up, Alberto, come on over here, darling. Look at this for just a minute, because he's got to do some thinking. He could build on top of this one. It's flat. Or he could build on top of this one. It's this is called a triangular prism. Do you see how it's marked that way?
It's like a 10.
I know, it's like a 10. Remember, Alberto, you can take one off if you like before you keep building. Okay? So, all right, Alberto, first we'll let you roll. Be careful not to roll it there. Ooh, how many?
5.
You know again it's 5? My goodness, you guys are fast. Let's see if Alberto gets out 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh my goodness, he picked big ones. Does he have 5? Okay, Alberto, you ready? Where's he going to put them? I don't know. Remember, you can take one off the top if you want. Okay, all right.
Don't let him.
1. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
How many did you
3.
get?
Oh my goodness.
Okay, you get to get 5 blocks and stack 5 blocks.
Yes.
Oh, well.
What teaching strategies did you see used in this video clip? Well, I hope you saw several. First of all, I modeled attitudes and behaviors that I wanted children to use as they played this game. Did you notice the yes when they were able to build the tower, or the oh well when one of the blocks fell down? That was a very important part of this lesson from my perspective. I wanted to model the behaviors that they should use if something happened that didn't work for them. A second thing I did in this particular tape was I asked quite a few questions. You heard me talking about which blocks should I use, how many should I put in, and those kinds of questions that would get at the ideas of number and operations, even though this was a geometry task. A third strategy I used was I gave directions with meaning and modeling. I really wanted them to not only see the directions, but I wanted them to hear the directions. And then I wanted them to show me that they understood the directions by modeling those behaviors. The second question said, are the teaching strategies used appropriate for the task? I want you to know that the children were used to the dice and domino patterns when they were throwing the die. I purposely planned that activity because I knew they had those experiences. Did you notice when when I threw the die and I asked how many more would be needed? Did you notice the many different answers that I received? And the child that said, it's 4 and you needed 1 more. Could you see how that worked? Again, the child was using experiences that they'd had before to play this game, and that was important. A second point was that I gave specific directions that were teacher guided. While you did not see the child guided activities nearly as much, I purposely at this time had to give a lot of teacher directions because it was the first time they played the game. Later on in the small group, they were able to play it, again modeling using my directions. But then as later on, which you did not see, but later on they were able to really play the game a lot using just their directions. They loved being able to play this game, and it became much more of a child-guided lesson than it did in this particular video clip. Let me give just a few reflections on this particular tape. One thing I noticed as I did this tape was I wished very much that I had used more formal geometry vocabulary. The child, when we were picking up some of the blocks, and they said, oh, I want that block, the one that looks like a box, or the one that looks like a roof on a house. I would like to have been able to say, oh, that would be called a triangular prism, or a rectangular prism. It looks like a box, but I call it a rectangular prism. I think using correct geometry vocabulary is very important, and I like to use it in context of what the children are doing. I wish I had done that a little bit more, but I do really like many of the other things that I did in this. I felt like the modeling that went on made a whole lot of sense for the young children, and they were able to play this game successfully. The second tape we'll look at has to do with, again, geometry concepts and a particular vocabulary word that I am introducing to children. This, again, is a pre-K classroom, and the tape deals with this word that they're going to be using later in Block Center. As you look at this tape, I want you again to concentrate on 2 questions. The first question, what teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? And the second question, are the teaching strategies used appropriate for the task? This tape has something a little different in it that I want you to think about before you view it. I am going to introduce a vocabulary word, and I'm going to use a model and demonstrate something for them. As I do, I'm going to be doing it incorrectly. And I want you to understand that this is going to be purposeful. It is intentional, because I want them to be able to catch my mistake. And that will be giving them an opportunity to really think through something that's happening and be able to find it. See if you can do the same. After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
Watch me for a minute. Everybody take your hand like this, and I want you to rub it on your face for a minute. Is your face smooth?
Yes.
Mine isn't. I got a nose sticking out. You got a nose sticking out?
Me too.
Rub your hand like this. I start up here and I go boing. I got a nose sticking right out there. But this is, look here, this is my face. And on a fat, I call these fat shapes. It looks like a fat square, doesn't it? Yeah. Now look, face. This is called a face on the box. So this is a face. And the face is smooth and it's a square. Now I wonder how many faces this cube has.
4.
Would you show me with your fingers how many faces you think it has? Ooh, I'm seeing people put up 4. That's a good thought.
3. I got 3.
Some people have 3. Well, let's count them. Okay, put your hands down here. You help me count, okay? When I put my hand out, then we'll count that side. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Have I counted some of those already?
No, not a side. Yes. I have a side. No, you didn't.
Do you think I counted some 2 times maybe, or 3?
No, you counted them a lot of times.
I think I counted them a lot of times. Oh my goodness, I gotta keep track of this. Let me see.
Let's talk about the questions that you were reflecting on as we watch this video clip. First question, what teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? Well, I hope that you saw me provide vocabulary information using materials, physically showing, and then using auditory. I certainly talked about them, and as we use the vocabulary in connection to our own face, as well as the geometry figures. I also hope that you noticed that as we counted the faces, I did not give a starting place to count. I did not mark the faces on the cube. I did not tell them when we were finished counting. But rather, I demonstrated counting in a very inappropriate way for counting. Now, let's go to the second question, which I've given you a lot of hints about already. The second question says, are the teaching strategies used appropriate for the task? I want you to know that I intentionally and purposely counted the faces on the cube incorrectly. I did not start in a particular place and mark it. I did not mark as I counted the faces. Instead, I had us just start counting. Now, why would I do this in this particular case? The reason is very important. First of all, these children had been working on counting for a long time. They were very familiar with the idea that you needed to know where you were starting and you needed to keep track of what you had counted so that you knew when you were done, you said the last number that would tell how many. They knew this part. I already knew they did. But I wanted to purposely demonstrate something incorrectly so they could catch my reasoning, so they could figure out why it was wrong. And as you noticed, I hope you noticed, they did. They were able to say, we've counted that a lot. In fact, a little boy that you may not be able to see on the tape simply said, I'm sick of this. We've done this a lot. My point is, in this case, it made sense to demonstrate it incorrectly because children were familiar with the concept and could then be able to correct my thinking. Sometimes children will say to me, Mrs. Copley, you need a lot of help in thinking. And I love that because what that means is they know they are able to catch mistakes and they are able to reason. In this case, that was very appropriate. Let me also give you a few other reflections. As I went around to the centers and listened to them using vocabulary and emphasized the word face, I wish later that I would have brought them all back together and they could have picked their favorite block and we could have counted the faces on their favorite block. I think that would have made it a conclusive type of lesson. Instead, I did not do that part. And I've done that since then, where I brought them back together and connected the word face to what they had been using. In this next tape, you're going to see some very different teaching strategies that are used in an activity that I call transformation. You're going to see a group of children that are sitting around a table with me, and we are together transforming Play-Doh into different shapes. You will notice that I am sitting and doing the same activities as they are being asked to do, and that I am talking much of the time. Again, that is on purpose. It's intentional. I want them to hear the vocabulary I'm using, and I want them to model some of their behaviors after mine. There are two questions I would like you to focus on as you look at this particular tape. The same two questions we've looked at all along. First of all, what teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? And secondly, are they appropriate for the task? After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
Just a minute. Transform. Make a shape just like that. I call it a ball. Or you could be. I could call it a sphere. Now make one. Ooh, I'm gonna roll mine. Are you rolling yours? Oh, I want to make it smooth. I got some humps in mine. I gotta make it smooth. Can you make it smooth?
I can make mine smooth.
Can you use all your Play-Doh to make it smooth?
I can make mine.
Use all your Play-Doh. Can you use all of your Play-Doh? Can you use all of it? And it's got to roll if it works. Let's see. Oh yeah, mine rolls pretty good. Oh, could I help you? Would you help me make mine and I'll help you make yours? I'm gonna roll it.
I make mine.
If it's a sphere, it's got to roll and have no corners sticking out. Oh boy.
No corners sticking out.
No corners sticking out. It's got to be smooth and roll.
Mine is. I can't do mine. I got it.
Here, can I help you do?
I can't do mine. I can do mine. I can't do mine.
Here, would you do mine? Would you work with mine, please?
You can do mine.
No, yours looks good. Keep rolling. Make sure it's smooth. It's smooth and it can roll. This is called, it's like a ball, isn't it? But you know what I call it? I call it a sphere. A sphere. Have you ever heard sphere? That's a big word, sphere. Can you say that? Sphere. Oh, you've got it. All right, now put that in your plate. I'm ready to do the next one. Are you ready? Leave it down for a minute because I'm going to put another one. This was a ball. Put your hands like this, everybody. Hands like this. Here we go. Are you ready for the next one? All right. Transform.
A circle.
It's like a can,
But it's like a pipe.
but I call it like it's like a pipe. I call it a cylinder. So everybody try your own for a minute. I'm going to roll it like this. See how I'm rolling it? Because I want it to be smooth. And then I'm going to make it flat. See how it's flat on the top? I better turn it over. Roll it. See, roll it. Here, would you help me with mine? And I'll help you with yours. I'm going to take all of it. I'll help you with yours in a minute. Okay, I'm going to roll it, make it kind of like, see, it's kind of like, it's like a can, smooth up. Oh yeah, boy, yours is good. Roll it. Oh, they look good. Now make them flat on the bottom. Make them flat on the bottom. See, they roll. They look like a can, don't they? But I call it a
cylinder.
It looks kind of like a worm.
Didn't you enjoy looking at that tape? It was so much fun to see the children talking about what they were doing and so very involved in the activity. Well, let's talk about the questions first. What teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? Well, first of all, I think the thing that hits me the most is that I added a challenge to these children as they went through the activity. The first thing I did was ask them to transform the Play-Doh into a sphere. I know that's the easiest. However, as you noticed as you looked at the children as they were doing it, some children had a great deal of difficulty. This took fine motor skills to be able to do this. I hope you saw the children who were copying and doing those activities and trying very hard to do it, because the next strategy I used, or another strategy I used, was giving them support. Did you see the child who I said, I need some help on mine, and we traded, and I helped make hers better, and as she kind of messed mine up, actually. But what happened is that we were supporting each other, and we were making them together, and they listened, and they watched, and they constantly kept trying to do it. I also hope that you heard how they used their vocabulary to really hit this particular activity. I gave them specific feedback as they were working. I said, ooh, yeah, we've got to have it smooth. I have to have mine smooth, or I need a particular edge on mine, or whatever. Or let me smack the face down so it can be flat. Again, my purpose here was to give them assistance and give them specific feedback about what those shapes look like and what were their attributes. By using the Play-Doh, they were able to actually form them themselves. And rather than using shapes that I gave them, they were able to create those shapes in some form or another. Now on to the second question. Were the teaching strategies appropriate for the task? Well, the use of Play-Doh, to have children actually manipulate the Play-Doh, move the Play-Doh so that it can look like the shapes that I was trying to talk about, was very important. Normally, when I taught this lesson, before I thought about Play-Doh, I would pass around the one shape I had, or maybe two shapes I had, and the children would touch a shape that somebody else had made if I had enough of them. Now I'm able to use the Play-Doh where they're able to actually create it themselves and feel it and touch it and know what's there. I think that's very appropriate for them. The second part that I think is so appropriate is the idea that I, as the teacher, talked out loud. I thought out loud. So as I was making them, I was saying, ooh, mine isn't smooth, or mine doesn't roll, or ooh, I need to make this part flat. You see, I was talking about what went on in my head. I hope you heard what the children did. They started talking out loud too. There was the one little boy who I put down the cylinder and said, transform this into the cylinder. He said, that looks like a pipe. And I was able to say, yes, it looks like a pipe, and I call it a cylinder. He again was taking what he knew, his experiences, and talking out loud as he made his shapes. I particularly love this tape because of the children's reactions. I hope you were able to hear their responses as well. This next tape involves a person that's very important to me. That's my grandson. But I think it illustrates a very important point as well. As a teacher, I often don't have time to really observe and watch every child. When it's your grandson, you are able to watch the child a lot. So I was able to catch my grandson playing with a group of blocks that he had never played with before. And even though he couldn't talk and verbalize, I think he shows a wonderful persistence and effort at trying to build the block tower that he wants to build. As you watch this tape, I want you again to consider the same two questions. What strategies do I use? And the second part is, are the teaching strategies appropriate for the young child? After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
the tongue out. Yay! Ford!
Yay! Good.
It has to fit. I don't care what you say, this one's supposed to go here. I just love it, look at that. Ford. Alright, it'll go this time. Come on! Fit on the job. What's your problem? Oh, see, I was gonna say something about that. Hi!
There! Yay!
Yay! Oh, I knew it would do it. Yay!
The video clip that you just watched was very, very short compared to the actual event. The event actually took, the entire tape is actually 40 minutes. I wanted you just to see the beginning part and then the end part as well. During this entire tape, you did not see or hear anyone really talk to the child. Instead, we just stood off to the side and watched him. Let's look at the two questions. The first one, what teaching strategies does the teacher use in this video clip? We acknowledged that he was there. We were filming him. He's used to being filmed. But he really did not acknowledge us much. We acknowledged him and he looked at us a few times. But he kept going back again and again to that same problem. If you could have watched the 40 minutes of tape, you would have seen him take that same green blocks over and over again and try to stack it on top because that's what he thought it was supposed to do. We did nothing but watch him and acknowledge what he was doing. We, I think, also encouraged his persistence by not interrupting. I have to tell you, as his grandmother, I wanted to interrupt a whole bunch of times. And often as a teacher, I want to interrupt a child who is working on a particular problem. This particular tape, I think, shows what happens sometimes if we don't intrude too quickly or we don't interrupt and we just acknowledge what they are doing. Well, let's look and see if this is appropriate. At the end of the tape, I'm sure you noticed that he was clapping his hands. He knew he had gotten that green block to be where it was supposed to go. I think that positive outcome for him and that sense of accomplishment that he demonstrated was the idea that indeed this was appropriate. It was appropriate for me to stay out of the situation as the teacher and to simply acknowledge what he was doing. As I reflect on this tape, I simply reflect on the idea that how often I as a teacher do not just spend time observing children and staying out of a situation. I wanted to go and put the block on for him or give him the block to show him where it should be. And sometimes in a teaching situation, I intervene way too quickly and solve the problem for them. So the teaching strategy here is acknowledge what a child is doing, but sometimes leave them alone. The next topic in this section is entitled Scaffolding Children's Learning. This is such an important topic, and it's such an important role of a teacher. There are many forms of scaffolding, or scaffolding takes many forms is another way to say it. Please look at this list as we talk about this particular topic. The first tape that illustrates scaffolding is a tape that I call, or a game I call, Where's the Bear? In this particular activity, I'm working with a small group of 4-year-olds, and this is the first time they have ever played this game. That is important to know, because when you scaffold behavior, one of the things you're doing is scaffolding from what they already know. And these children have not used this particular game before or used this particular vocabulary. So my scaffolding will be different in this particular tape than it would be if I had been playing this game at a later time. In the particular game, there are cups that are on the floor, and it's very hard for you to see them, but each of those have numbers on them or numerals on them. So they are labeled from 1 to 10. The bear is hidden under one of the cups, and the children are detectives that have to find out where the bear is. There are 2 questions that I want you to think about as you watch this particular tape. The first one, how did the teacher scaffold the behavior? One of the things that you're going to see is you're going to see their behavior and their learning that they do. And I want you to see what particular strategy or form of scaffolding that I used. The second question is, what evidence did you see that the children learned? So look for both of those as you watch this next tape. After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
The 10th or the first?
First.
All right, you want the first cup?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and turn it over.
No.
No, not under the first cup, okay. All right, now let me give you the clue. You ready? It's after the first cup. That means it could be any of these. It's Eliza's turn now. Eliza, what cup do you want to choose? Tell us what cup.
Number 2.
You want the second cup, right? So go, would you choose the second cup for me? No, it's not under the second cup. It's after the second cup. Okay. Brandy, it's Brandy's turn now. Brandy, which one would you want to choose? 10th cup. Very nice. Thank you for choosing. Oh. Now look what it is. It's between the 10th and the second one. It's in between. It is now Latera's turn. Latera, what would you like to choose? Oh, you had to tell me first. What cup is that?
4.
For the 4th cup. It's not there. You ready for another clue?
I know how to do the 3rd.
Here's a clue. It's between these 2. So it's not there. It's between here.
This one?
Nope, I'm not going to tell you. Haley, it's your turn next.
I want to
You have to tell me which one.
I want to pick
8.
No.
No, it's not. Now listen for this clue, you guys. Are you ready? This is the best clue of all. It's not before 8. It's between 8 and 10. That one.
Nobody would
there it is. Do you see how cool that is? Give yourself a hand, everybody. Very nice.
Let's talk about the answers to these questions. The first question, how did the teacher scaffold children's learning? Well, the first thing I hope you saw was that I gave lots of hints and clues. In fact, I think you probably saw me say them, and you saw me show many actions which really showed them what I meant. The clues were extensive and the hints were extensive. But I also want you to notice that I gave hints and clues that use the word not. The word not is a very important term for young children. They need to hear it means it's not there, but it's between these two items. It's not there, but it's before these two items. You see, I use the word not to help them in their reasoning and to help them determine what is in the activity. The second thing I did is I hope you heard me add the ordinal terms to those cups. Most of the children said, I think it's under cup 3, or they would point to cup 8. And I would say, do you mean the third one, or do you mean the 8th one? I'm always looking for opportunities to add vocabulary with meaning to any task that we do. So I used both of those in the scaffolding. The second question said, what evidence did you see that the children learned? Well, you may not have seen too many things in this first example, but I saw quite a few, because the children made correct guesses with my clues and hints. I've done this activity many times, or an activity like this, where without those extensive clues and hints, the children did not find the teddy bear where it was supposed to be, or were not able to use those words to locate an object. I do want you to know from my reflection on this activity many times later, the children started using the ordinal terms themselves. Instead of saying it's under cup 4, they would say it's under the 4th cup, Mrs. Copley. Or I did not have to use the physical demonstrations as many times as I did in this particular activity. In fact, as we played this throughout the year, and it's one that they love to play, I found that they would just simply say, where is it? And I would say, it's before that, and they would just simply say, I think it's under the 3rd cup, or they would simply use the ordinal terms to do it. They learned from my clues. The context of this next video clip is the 1st grade classroom. It's very important that you know where this lesson takes place. This is a lesson that is used in the middle of the year, and it is a lesson that's an exploratory lesson. It's a lesson that the children are doing before they've had any measurement concepts introduced to them, before they've used rulers, before they've used measuring tapes, before they've done any length measurement at all. In fact, this is a lesson that I use as an assessment tool, but more importantly, it's a lesson that I use to help them explore the concept of measurement. In the lesson, you're going to hear me begin with a task. I'm going to ask them how big the room is, and I'm going to tell them a story about a man named Big Bill and a man named Little Larry. Big Bill measured the room and got a particular foot measurement. Little Larry measured the room and got a different foot measurement. And I'm going to ask them why that would happen. After I have a discussion with them, and you're going to hear some answers, the next thing that I do is I have them measure the room. They use any tool they can find in the room and they measure the room. The most important part of the video clip is the discussion that we have after they have measured, where we talk about why the answers would be different for Big Bill and Little Larry. As you watch this tape, again, there are 2 questions I want you to think about. The first question is, think about how did the teacher scaffold children's learning? What specific strategies did they use? And the second question is, what evidence did you see that the children learned? After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
And here's the problem.
Okay.
Little Larry, he gives me his measurements. I thought they'd be the same, but his were 45 feet by 50 feet. Now that's a lot different than Bill's.
Maybe.
And I can't figure out what the answer is. Would you do me a favor right now, before you raise your hand and think about this for a minute? I have something I used to do in my 1st grade class, and I'd like you to do it with me too. If it's a hard problem, and here's the problem. First of all, I can't figure out why Big Bill would get this number and Little Larry would get this number. I just can't figure it out. So before you raise your hand, this is a thinker problem. So would you put your hands like this? You're going to be thinking. That means your hand's not going to be waving at me. and it means you're not going to be talking for a minute. Would you just think about that? Why would they be so different? Big Bill gets 30 feet by 35 feet, and Larry gets 45. But don't put your hands up. I want you just to think for a few minutes. It's one of those you got to put in your head. Why would they be so different? I wonder why. Now would you please turn to the person right next to you and talk about it. So turn to the person next to you and see if you can share your answers.
I think Larry was on this side and Big Bill was on that side. And so because this side is small and that side is a lot bigger, so Larry should have measuring windows to the door. And Big Bill, Larry's feet was small, so he had to take bigger steps. And Big Bill was big, so he
It's measured different places, okay? Yes.
We think that little Big Bill was measuring that side to that side, and Larry measuring that side to that side. Because Larry had more and Bill had less.
Okay, the only thing is, they gave me two numbers. So Big Bill said one way was 30 feet and the other was 35, and Larry said one way was 45 and the other 50. Yeah, I think you might be onto something. I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
Bill is bigger than Larry, so he must take bigger steps than Bill. So like they might take. So Bill takes bigger steps than Larry because his feet is bigger, and Larry takes littler steps than Bill. So I think they're doing. I don't know how to explain.
Well, you know, my question, I think this, Big Bill has big feet, but he's got a little number.
I know.
And Larry has little feet and he has a big number.
I know.
It's kind of strange. I do, if you want to use measuring tape or rulers, they're back there. You don't have to. I just want to know how many feet it is from here to here and how many feet it is from here to here. Okay?
Well, you like this, right? Well, this is better. How do you get this thing out? How do you get this thing out? I'll be right back. 40.
Oh, okay. Well, that would work. Now, come on over here, though. Here's my question. And, Ben, is this a question? Because it's a really big one. So you use this. So what if you'd had enough of these to go all the way from here to here? How do you know how many feet? How'd you get the number 45 feet? Here, stand so we can see, darling. Move up here. Yeah, here, stand like this. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's say you used 5 of these or 7 of these to go all the way across. More? Did you use 9 of these?
No, more than 10.
More than 10, you think. So there's kind of some differences there. But how do you know how many feet this is?
I know how to count yards. 1 yard is 36 feet. 3 feet is 1 yard. And an inch is this.
Here, stand. I want everybody to hear you. So say that again. What did you say? You know how to count feet. What do you do?
3 feet is 1 yard. 1 yard is 36 inches. And 1 feet is 12 inches.
So how do you know what 12 is on here? I see like this is 81. This is 81.
That's why it's backwards. Yeah, it could. It's 1 feet, like an inch is this. So this is a feet. And
So this is 1 foot?
yeah, I learned it.
Okay. Huh. There's a lot. Oh, there. Look at. There's numbers on the other side. So is this a foot? 12? Is this a foot 12? Zach, excuse us. Huh.
Yes.
This is really kind of like this is. Well, the numbers are kind of funny on here, aren't they?
No.
Well, this one goes up to 31, and this one goes to 12. Which one is it?
We use this part because it's longer.
Boys and girls, how do you think their feet would be different than Big Bill's feet? How would their feet be different than Big Bill's feet? Yes, sir.
Because Big Bill's feet is more bigger, and they got bigger than Bill.
So Big Bill's feet might be this big, right?
That's big.
Those are big.
Every step that
And you counted every step. How would their feet be different than little Larry's?
I couldn't.
How would it be different? Yes.
Smaller.
They're smaller. Let's see, if little Larry was walking with his feet like they did, across the room, and Big Bill walked across the room. You guys have given me a good hint. Give them a hand. Thank you. Have a seat. All right, you ready, Matthew? All right. Big Bill gets a little number and little Larry gets a big number. So why was that again? Why do you think?
Because Big Bill has bigger steps and he has to walk less time, and Larry has small steps and he has to walk more times.
The little you walk more, big you walk less. Big. I'm thinking big you get a big number, but
No.
no. Okay. All right, Matthew, you're doing great. Thank you for giving us that piece of information. Give him a hand.
Let's look at the questions. First question, how did the teacher scaffold children's learning? Well, I hope you heard me ask many, many, many questions. In fact, I was confused a lot during this activity. That was on purpose. You see, I wanted to point out the discrepancy in Big Bill's measurements and Little Larry's measurements. I wanted to get at the thinking of why that would be different. Now, this whole idea deals with inverse relationships. In measurement, the concept of inverse relationships is very important to young children. The idea is that if you have a little unit that you're using to measure, it will take a lot of those to cover a distance, versus if you have a big unit that you're measuring, it only takes a little group of those or a little number of those to measure. That concept of inverse relationships needs to be investigated in exactly this way. I need to ask lots of questions. I need to be someone who really needs to think about this and have it explained to me. It is a method that's used to describe or to be able to scaffold learning, and it's a very important one. In fact, I've listed it here as pointing out a discrepancy. Did you hear the little girl who talked about, well, I just counted the inches on this ruler? And I said to her, well, is it the little inches, as she called them, the little marks, or is it the big marks? I don't know which one to use. Again, I was pointing out a discrepancy because I wanted them to reason themselves and think about measurement concept, and especially the one dealing with inverse relationships. The third scaffolding idea I used is I paired children with their peers. You will notice that I did that in the beginning section, where I asked them to turn to their peer and talk about why they think there was a difference. The children immediately did that. They also worked with a peer when they were measuring. And then when they came up to describe what they had done, they came up as partners. It was very important for them to hear other people's thinking as well as to work with the support of a peer. In this lesson, I used many different strategies and I scaffold in many different ways. But again, please remember this is an exploratory lesson. We did not go further with this lesson at this time, but what we were doing was helping them reason through and scaffold their thinking in this very important idea. Well, let's look at the next question before we go further with this idea. What evidence did you see that the children learned? Well, first of all, their responses to the questions were really quite interesting. I don't know if you noticed at the beginning, most people just went, I don't know why there's a difference between Big Bill and Little Larry. As they talked after they had measured and after they'd had an experience and after they listened to others, their responses started to be more accurate. In fact, you heard quite a few children say, well, if it's big, it doesn't take much time, or if it's little, it takes a lot of time to go across, or a lot of measurements to go across. So they were beginning to get the concept. Also, they started to be able to explain the concept better. See, young children getting the concept is different than them being able to verbalize the concept. And it was a very important part that I saw many children be able to model what they saw or be able to begin to get the idea, while other children started to formulate or explain it better. This is a process, and my scaffolding was made in exactly that way to help them get that process or that idea. Now, as I reflect upon this particular tape, I think the important thing for you to know is that then from this tape, I planned the next instructional component. Because now what we needed to do is take what we had explored and then talk about using the same footprints or using the same idea to measure. So that while one group of children used one thing, another group of children used another, or while Big Bill had big feet and Little Larry had little feet, we now needed to come up with some unit of measure that would be the same to do it. From then on, I taught about foot from the idea of what a foot is, and it made that particular explanation so much better. This particular lesson was a reasoning lesson, an exploratory lesson. I scaffolded that thinking so that then we could go into a more formal discussion of what measurement is.